Greetings everyone, take a deep breath. Let's strengthen this video cam a bit. Is it? Focus on yourself, be ready for our class. And rejoice. Today we learn 2 Siddhis. It'll be fun. Always take the time to breathe. Focus on your body, incarnate. Bring your mind here. Try to have a normal posture. If you listen to the class all squished up, comfy in your bed, that's fine, but you're not going to get as much as you can from the class. Right? It's good to be sitting well, be focused. Like if you're really in a physical class, this way your mind is focused on what's going on. We're not gonna have a big attendance today live. Yeah, good to see you, bro. But this video will be useful in the future, of course. The Siddhi for today is responsibility. In Sanskrit, we say DAyitva. D-A-Y-I-T-V-A. DAyitva. And at one point, one of the people who helped me will write it. So let's just focus on responsibility. What does it mean? The thing that will disturb us mostly about responsibility is our misunderstanding of it. DAyitva, responsibility. The first mistake we do is when we take too much responsibility, emotional responsibility. Okay, I'm not talking necessarily about the responsibilities you have at work. I'm talking about moral and philosophical responsibilities. Okay? So you're the one responsible for causing a situation in your life. Okay? So one of the difficulties with responsibility is we take on too much. We declare ourselves responsible for emotional reactions of others. Okay? So let's say you say a word that someone doesn't like and they react. It's their problem. Now, if you look at a woman and you call her bitch and you're a white privileged male, she might like it. She might not like it. So it is your responsibility of what you have just created there. That reaction, you are responsible. Okay? That person is responsible of how she reacted to that. That's an example. Of course, with respect and compassion, you should just never call someone a bitch, simply. But you see, it's cultural. There are places where, in America, where a woman would call herself that bitch and be proud about it, okay? Because it's in their culture is a symbol of strength for a woman. But in Europe, that bitch is only the insulting connotation. You see, I'm using a word that is, of course, controversial for the purpose of showing that it can be disturbing. Okay, so when you call someone a name, there are places you can call also a man a bitch, meaning that he has no spine, that he's weak and he doesn't have self-confidence. Okay. So all of this is cultural. It changes where you are. Okay? So, if you call a name to someone, you are responsible for the distress and the conflict. Okay? The person who receives the insult and is insulted is responsible for their emotional reaction. You see how that can be difficult to discern who is responsible for what. Okay, now responsibility, it applies to everyone, okay, in a philosophical and metaphysical sense. I am responsible for how I react to a situation. And I am responsible for what I create in others if I'm the one acting. You see, that there's a problem here. Sometimes we take responsibility for someone else's difficulty to digest a situation. I don't know if you understand me there. If you're just being yourself, sometimes you're just being yourself, and someone becomes unhappy at you because of their expectations. They had expectations that you would be kind to them, or that you would take the trash out, or that you would, I don't know, treat them like a victim as a good savior, you know. If someone gets disappointed at you just being simply yourself, it will happen, okay? Life will be filled with this. And then it is not your responsibility how others have built expectations towards you. Like I said, that's at the moral or ethical level. In your job, your boss has expectation of you doing the job. And if you don't, well, he's not going to be happy about it, okay? So responsibility is so difficult to establish who is responsible for what, okay? So it takes a lot of contemplation and personal growth and self-discovery to realize I am responsible of how I feel, and I am responsible of how I react towards others. And if I did not act in any troubling way, others are responsible for the troubles they created in their own mind. And I remain responsible for how I am troubled in my own mind. Okay? A major difficulty with responsibility is that we will take responsibilities on our shoulders, in our mind and our heart, for other people's suffering, when they are the ones who put themselves there. So that's a difficulty in the concept of responsibility, because we start to feel that we have the responsibilities of the world on our shoulders, and we don't. Okay? Another problem that happens with responsibility is when we take too less. So we don't take responsibility for what we have created, for what we have provoked. And we don't take responsibility for our own actions. See, it can be in both ways. We take too much responsibility and then not enough of what we really are responsible of. Because we are responsible of who we are, how we feel, how we think, but also responsible of what we create, what we provoke. So my actions provoke reactions outside. I'm responsible of that. This is where the line becomes troubled. The others are also responsible of how they react to our action. It's shared responsibility. It's not only one, only the other. It's a shared responsibility, okay? So I'm responsible for what I create, especially in terms of reaction in others, but others are responsible for how they feel, because they're supposed to be masters of their own life, and I'm master of my life. Now imagine the scenario where I take on too much responsibility for what happens in others, but I do not take responsibility for what happens in me. So both extremes at the same time. That makes a person in denial, constantly in denial. Saving the world and not looking at their own shit, okay? And this is where personal growth comes in, okay? It takes a while to discover what is my responsibility. And for that, some spiritual work and some personal growth is required. Just to be responsible of how you feel and stop being the subtle victim of everyone else's comments about you. Stop caring about what others think about you. However, if you want to be loved by others, you also have to create it to act in ways that will make others like you without betraying your own responsibility to yourself, you know. But that's going to be a lot of work on yourself to do that, okay? Now, the Siddhi. Let's talk about the Siddhi, DAyitva. DAyitva is the Siddhi where you're wanting to understand and also integrate responsibility. We're sometimes afraid of responsibility, of taking responsibility, because we don't realize how much freedom it brings, how much it lightens the heart and the mind. When you can take responsibility for an action you've done, and finally you don't have to hide anymore in denial. And when you realize you don't have to take responsibility for the world's reaction towards you. They are responsible about how they feel. I'm responsible for my part, which did I make them feel like that? Really? Or I'm just silently being myself, doing what I do, you know? When you have blessings, others will be jealous of you. I have the blessings that for the pandemic time, I did not have to work hard like before. Played a lot of video games and I did work a bit. And then there were jealous people, not the closest people to me. They understand, I think. But there are jealous people, like, I have to work my ass out and this guy's just sitting there playing video games. And well, you know what? I worked like a machine for maybe 15, 20 years to get to that point. And I'll eventually have to go work again. Not like a machine, but responsibly, you know. It's cool because I could afford it, but that's my blessing. And I know that not my students, not the spiritual people, the mundane people who became aware of my situation, they got like, shit, I'd like to, you know, work 20 hours a week and play video games. You know, it's I worked for that. You know, I'm responsible of that. So I had to stop feeling guilty for how a few others reacted because I had a blessing. Now, I know a few people who will never have to work in their life. And they're in their 30s, I think, 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s. It's their blessing. It's their blessing. Just let them have their blessing. If you have to do what you have to do, okay? And for the most of my life, I had to work. And I saw these people with richness and wealth given by their parents. And it's like, it's one person in a million or in 100,000. It's so rare. Most people have to work, and that's life. It's a lesson of humility, okay? So responsibility is for me not to get jealous of other people's blessing. Now let's use beauty. I consider myself a acceptable, nice, average man. I've always dreamed of looking like Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise. Well, that was my teenage dream, and of course, I didn't look like them, of course. So I understand this thing until I realize I have to stop being jealous of other people's blessings. And I have to just deal with the cards that I've been dealt with, which is, I'm going to be myself, and I'm just happy I'm autonomous in that fashion. You understand? Like, we compare ourselves to better. It is much more a problem for women who look at their body and it is impossible to look like the TV and cinema stars. It is impossible. Okay, like, so few people are sexy like that. So what do you think happens? They look at themselves and they hate themselves. The overselling of physical beauty polluted our mind in not making us able to just take a person as they are and who they are, So it's very difficult for women. So a responsibility is to disengage ourselves from the opinion of others. It has to do with money, the amount of work, what you look, your lifestyle, your behavior. If you are respecting the laws of your country, your bills are paid, your children are eating, you don't owe nothing to no one. You understand? You just have to be in peace with yourself. Yes, the beautiful people have the curse of their blessing. They get a lot of attention that sometimes they don't want. So there too we have to be responsible for, our presence in the world. The Siddhi DAyitva, it will help that it will untangle the complexity of responsibility. It will untangle all the weight we put on our shoulders, meaning our heart and our mind. DAyitva will make us want to be responsible for who we are, our action, and understand our implication when others react to us, but not take responsibility for their reaction. So if you're just sitting there being yourself, you're not the cause of someone else's problems, But you're still responsible of what you create in life, like what you cause, what you provoke. Okay? So DAyitva, what is my responsibility? Let's make a strong metaphysical step there in the practice of DAyitva. How can I explain this? When you have a sickness, you're born with it. Let's say a sickness, you're born with it, like a dysfunction in the body or, some handicap, whatever. You want to think as a human, I am the victim of this natural occurrence. Well, as just a human, just an animal, yes, it happened to you. Responsibility is, what are you going to do about it? That's your responsibility. How are you going to handle this trait of yours? A personality trait, a mental disorder, bipolar, depressive, obsessive. What is your responsibility to handle your own instabilities, okay? Your own level of crazy, okay? What can you do about it? Okay, instead of playing the victim, but I was born like that, I didn't choose that, okay? What can you do about it? Then there's a physical situation, Some people are functional, some people are not completely functional. But this is where it's gonna get with DAyitva. It's a Siddhi, it's a meditation, and it transcends into the soul, okay? If you are born physically mutated, dysfunctional, mentally unstable, if you have a difficulty in your body or your mind, DAyitva will transcend the simple natural occurrence and will remind you, and this is where it gets hard on the human ego, what did I create? Oh, what did I create? Why am I responsible of that? Like, I should not be responsible of being so ugly or so like missing a leg or always freaking out. Why am I responsible of having so much anger inside me? A few of you, your difficulty is a lot of accumulated trauma very young, so you're always angry, very defensive. And you'd think, but I did not create that, I was a child. Yeah, as a human, animal, child, you did not create that. But as a soul, why did I put myself in that position? You see, this is where the ego fights. No, it's not my fault. You're right. It is not your fault. But what did you create? You see, if we want to go, I told you, there's 2 Siddhis this week. If you want to go from DAyitva to the other Siddhi, BhavadAyitva, what did I create? Okay, you need to do this hippie, funky, metaphysical shift into, as a soul, I've manifested this situation in my life. And if you have the blessings of extreme beauty or wealth, as a soul, you've manifested that for yourself. Me as a soul, I've manifested myself to be ugly as a kid, and then I became beautiful as a young adult. Beautiful, acceptable, not superstar, just beautiful, acceptable. And I had to work a lot because of the environment I was coming from. I was born in an environment where I believed we had to give everything we got to survive. So I manifested that from a place of believing it. So as a soul, I have to ask myself, what did I create? I created myself this situation. Okay. So first, we practice DAyitva to untangle the mental complexities of what am I responsible of and what am I not responsible of. And stop being the victim of others' judgment. Stop being the saviors of others' problems. You're just being yourself as you are, tathagata, just being there. Okay? And seek simplicity with DAyitva. And once you have a handle on DAyitva, you switch to BhavadAyitva. I'm responsible for what I create. But that power, BhavadAyitva, is wonderful in the sense that the more you take responsibility, not guilt, but responsibility for the situation you've manifested in your lifetime, the more you take the metaphysical responsibility of that, the more creative power you have. The more you have this power to bring what you want to make out of this lifetime. But the starting point and the environment you chose, the country, the lifestyle, you created that. You see, this is where we have to make the difference between responsible of and guilty of. It is not your fault. You did nothing wrong. You simply manifest yourself a life like that. What did I create? Pretty funky. When you get older, some organs in your body starts to work less or not at all. We are responsible for incarnating as human. It is part of our responsibility, our BhavadAyitva. What do we create? We manifested ourselves in a human life where growth and decay was going to happen. So as much as we don't agree with it and how troubling it can be, now, I don't want to be arrogant and tell my elders how they should feel. That's not the point. And I only see from being a son of my mom is 80 something, 81. And maybe 82. I forgot to count. And I see how she's evolving now. I can't save her. Oh, I would wish that I could just make her stop the pain. I can't. You see, it's a difficult position where we have to tell ourselves, I've manifested myself to be incarnate as a living being in nature. As a human in society, but as an animal in this jungle that is just very organized. Human society is a very organized jungle. You know, we're still animals physically in there. So what did I create? And I have to take responsibility that I incarnate in a life where I would evolve, grow, prime, and then grow old or decay, like I would progress. Now, what can I do to still find peace, and if I'm lucky, joy and happiness in this advanced state of my life? You look at all that you are in your body and you think, I've created that. So I certainly did not give myself COVID a few weeks back, 2 weeks ago. And I'm still, purifying, although my last test was negative. But I'm the one who created that. You see, as a divine being, as a spiritual being, what did I create? You see, it's difficult to embrace the lessons. Because it will hurt my pride, like, I didn't want that. Well, you know what? I know you didn't want it, but what can you gain from that? Let's just say, what can you learn from that? Okay, that's the BhavadAyitva, the second Siddhi of this week. Okay, the metaphysical, what did I create? But BhavadAyitva will be difficult to practice or to accept. Because when you make a Siddhi, when you practice a Siddhi, you will receive revelations. And it changes you. It's a meditation. And for a while, you're not doing emotional integration or self-observation. You're just sitting in meditation and doing it. You're calling that power, that Siddhi. You're calling it. So it will come. And then whatever you fight with in your ego will be revealed. But the power that it gives you will also rise. Let's take a minute to practice DAyitva. Okay? So the human level responsibility. I am responsible for everything I am. And regardless if I believe what I've created or not, regardless of, I'm not guilty of being born how I was born or where or in which situation. But now that this is the cards I've been dealt with, what do I do with that? Okay? So DAyitva, just simple human responsibility. And it is a Siddhi. So there's spiritual power in there. DAyitva. Just practice DAyitva and know that it will bring revelation of responsibility. And will bring you that freedom and that power and that release from guilt. DAyitva. My mind and my heart lighter because I take charge of what I take charge. And I don't need anything more than that. DAyitva. I have the strength to be responsible of myself. And if I have children, if I've created children, I have the strength to be responsible for them until they can be responsible for themselves. But that's it. My manifested biological responsibilities to myself and making sure my children eat, and that's it. And I owe nothing to no one. The liberation. DAyitva. So let me be available to the revelations of the greater sense of responsibility, the greater power, and the freedom it brings in my mind. It feels a bit like a chittaditi, to not have chains in my mind. DAyitva. The Siddhi is for those of you who study the Siddhis of Krishna, it is in the family of Ishidva and Vashidva. Okay? DAyitva, it's one of those things that affect your mind, gives you power. DAyitva. And now we extend into the being of soul. BhavadAyitva. Responsible for what I create. Responsible for what I have manifested for myself. Once you realize that power of creativity, responsible, creator, BhavadAyitva. As a spiritual being, I am responsible for the lessons I've put myself through. Some of those lessons won't be that I will become super beautiful and super rich, no. That I will find peace and happiness in simplicity. Doing the best of what I've created for myself. And that is powerful. BhavadAyitva. 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 Expect metaphysical revelations. Expect that you won't be able to be a victim anymore. You won't be able to feel sorry for yourself. BhavadAyitva. I'm the one who created what I live, but that means I have the power to create more. And if I'm old and I think I have nothing else to create, that is not true. See what you can create in the current situation you have. BhavadAyitva. You'll discover your power. Great power. Yeah, Lakshmi Yantra, I feel happy. Yeah. Cool. Practice that. See how powerful and liberating is DAyitva and BhavadAyitva. DAyitva will help you liberate the weight you have on your human, but it will make sure that you take on the weight that belongs to you. But then again, it will give you that strength. Because as an ego, you'll stop playing like a victim or savior to others. Like, oh, poor me. Okay, I'm like that. What do I do with that? Okay, DAyitva. And then BhavadAyitva. As a soul, what did I manifest? What did I put myself through, and what can I do with this? How do I move forward? Release myself of the illusionary dreams of success, and let me find presence in simplicity, being there and doing the best of what I can with the tools I have to find peace and be happy. And that usually means to work, to find money, to make nature function, and then we go back to human situations. Okay? Let's see what you get out of all of this power, okay? When you practice these siddhis, you do a few minutes of DAyitva to get the human in the mood, okay? You do a few minutes of DAyitva, and then you switch to the BhavadAyitva. The elevated metaphysical of it, the soul level experience of all that. And you'll get a little high. The amount of energy you have will grow, the amount of power you'll grow, because you'll stop wasting energy in projection, futilities, living outside of yourself. Just be there. And yes, as a child, you're not old and mature enough to face the entire world. And as an elder, you don't have the energy or the health to face the world anymore. But you are exactly where you are. And you have the power to face that and make it better. Right? Find your power. Even in the weakest moment, find your power. It is inside. Simplicity. Alright? DAyitva. BhavadAyitva. Enjoy the week. So be it.